Hey Fit Fam, it is Coach Rye from Team Flex. Today we're going to break down a little bit of a comparison, the 2023 Wellness Olympia to the 2024 Wellness Olympia. And we're going to look at our top two competitors, the kind of top two in the entire wellness division. That would be Issa, who you're seeing on the screen here now, our current reigning wellness champion winner of Olympia. And then Francielli, our former reigning champion, you know, the undefeatable Francielli, in other words. And this is basically our top two in this division. I want to show a comparison of, you know, changes they made and where the direction of wellness is really headed and where things are going for you as a wellness competitor moving into your next season, 2025, no matter your level. So very relevant video for all of you out there. You know, you could not have competed before thinking about getting into this. You could be trying to get a pro card, or you could already be a pro. And my goal is to give you information, stuff you need to know to cater your training, how you're working on your physique, how you're doing all these things to do better on stage. And that's what I do on this channel all the time. So if you're new here, subscribe. And if you like videos like this, you guys give me a thumbs up and a comment down below. I appreciate seeing that. It really does, you know, get me in the zone to make more and more videos for you, okay? So let's break this down. So we have Issa from 2023 right here, and then Issa from 2024 right here, okay? So Issa took second to Francielli last year in 2023, and she came on to now defeat Francielli by one single point. Both times they were a 1 point difference, and here we are again. And I think it's really noticeable when you look at Issa compared to Issa here, the differences that she has really made and the things she applied and the changes she made to come here and take the win, right? And it really does reflect very well for what we talk about a lot on this channel, and that's the wellness criteria, staying true to the wellness criteria, where athletes, you know, these days, a lot of pros are pushing the criteria, trying to get massive, trying to get big, trying to be those mass monsters, and they're not placing well. So if we look at Issa for 2023, you know, it's a very similar physique, but a lot of changes I noticed, okay? First being with the shoulders. She's got a lot more upper body development here, and, you know, that was some of my feedback in the prior year when we did those Olympia analysis. But we look here and, you know, her shoulders have toned down a bit. They're not as pronounced, they're not as dramatic, they're not as full. And I think that's really a huge advantage for her and something all wellness competitors need to keep in mind. You do not want to be upsizing the upper body too much. And I'm seeing this down the call outs of even current Olympia, right? The more symmetrical that you look, the lower you're placing at Olympia. Well, you better believe that's trickling down to every single competition, even if it's, you know, an amateur event. So really what you want to pay attention to is making sure that, yes, you do train the upper body. You want to have that shoulder shape. You want to have that size there, but you don't want to overdo it. And, you know, Issa, she was on the cusp of overdoing it at the former Olympia. Taking second is no easy task, by the way, you guys. But I just want to highlight some really key differences that I do see in her physique that I think it really shows the direction judges continue to move wellness. So another big note here for me is her midsection, okay? So her midsection in 2023 looks very, very hard. It's got a lot of lines, you know, almost six-pack forming through, right? We can see how lean she is. Very strong oblique line here. And that is not what we're seeing as much in 2024. So over here, current Olympia win, she's a little bit softer in the oblique. You still get the lines, but it's not as lean. She's not as hard. Her waist also is a tad tinier, I do believe, right? Which is really, you know, indicates a lot the work she's done to kind of shrink the waist, because she's a little bit softer here, and she still is a little bit smaller in the midsection than she was 2023. So very interesting to see that, right? A little bit softer, a little bit of that direction actually being favored more for her on stage in this year's Olympia. Now, looking lower body wise, right? This was the year that she kind of almost overdid the look, I think. Upper glute was very pronounced, you know, overall glute very developed, and everything here is all good. But, you know, it's a very, very hard look. It's a lot of muscle showing through. She was a bit leaner, right? We start to see a little bit that into the non-standing leg and even into these deep lines. So definitely a little bit harder, a little bit more muscular. And again, she took second, didn't win, didn't beat Francielli at that point. And, you know, I think that it's really indicative of where wellness is going to show that this year looks a little bit more balanced, right? Still definitely has a lot of upper glute overall shape here, a lot of overall good development and really good symmetry between hamstrings and quads. but a little less lean and a little less muscular, to be honest, right? A little bit downsized even so. So she kind of brought in overall, if we look at this kind of front pose, quarter turn shot, we can see that this is overall a less muscular Issa and a less lean Issa, yet she's the Olympia champion. So that's a really, really important thing to pay attention to as far as criteria is going, right? Like, judges are making sure that this division does not get too crazy rampant with muscle and with being too lean. And it's really what it started to be. And, people always push it whatever way they want. A lot of pros trying to push it to the mass monster zone, become huge everywhere, tons of muscle, and become as shred as possible. And if you look down the call-outs at Olympia and you look at the competitors and you watch some of the other videos on this channel where we compared it, that is not being favored, right? And even in Issa, who took second last year, now comes and wins, she brought a little bit of a downsized look and a softer look this year compared to where she was last year, and she wins the Olympia. So that's a huge sign, you guys. That's a really, really big deal. Now let's take a look at the back pose here, because it's never the whole story when we just look at that one pose. So what we can easily see here from the back pose is a lot of similarities, but also some differences. So Issa, she always cleaned it up in the back, especially at the 2023 Olympia. That was very close for her and Fran. And I think that, this year she did bring an improved look even still. So what we can see as some similarities is the shape does not go away. We see the quad sweeps. This is going to be in both, right? With a lot of quad muscle, a lot of quad definition. However, if we look to the glutes now, which is a huge, huge focus in the back pose, this is downsized in the glutes, right? She still has the good upper glute overall shape here, everything there, this tie-in. But if we look at it compared to 2023, what we're going to see is her glutes have downsized. This is just a tad shift down in the muscle size over where she was 2023. In 2023, it looks to be that, she has a lot more of that glute development popping through, bigger size overall, almost a little bit of an asymmetrical look there compared to the other muscle groups of the lower body. But here, it is a very symmetrical look in this year's Olympia. It really does clean up, match well together. So it's, again, a clear message from judges. Hamstrings, quads, and glutes need to all work in symmetry. They need to match in wellness. We know wellness is asymmetrical when it comes to the upper body. However, this continues to be seen in all the top calls from pro events, and especially at Olympia, that you do want your lower body muscles to really work together. You want them to match in symmetry, shape, size, and proportion. So that's, again, being echoed here. And she does look a bit softer in the lower body as well this year. So again, very, a lot of direction from judges saying, hey, we want wellness to stay true to the criteria that we set. We haven't changed the rules. We haven't changed criteria. A lot of you athletes coming out here trying to be too big and too lean, we want to remind you, and even we're seeing that at the top level of the Olympia, that, this kind of softer, less muscular version of Issa is actually winning the entire event. So very, very interesting to see that. Now, upper body wise too, her upper body just appears much less developed at this Olympia again, so it increases that asymmetrical look for her, even versus 2023, which was clearly, a very muscled look, a bit of a leaner look, okay? So Issa definitely downsized a bit. She brought in less condition, and she wins Olympia. I hope you're taking notes, all you wellness competitors, right? You need to be getting that asymmetry down, but you need to be symmetrical in the lower body and make sure you hit conditioning, not get too lean. That is going to be the key to better placings. Now, I want to take a look at Fran, all right? So Fran, she was basically undefeatable when she came into wellness. She was dominating the whole time. But when we look at Fran now, really interesting to see how she kind of has shifted her look. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily for the better, okay? Fran, did a lot of the same thing, actually, that Issa did, in my opinion. It looks to me that she downsized a bit. So I think that, feedback for both of them being in top Olympia last year must have been like, hey, this is good. You guys are doing great. You're on the top two. But we don't want to see this get too big, so don't come any bigger. And they took that home with them and kind of applied it. But Fran didn't really come back better, in my opinion. She looks a little bit to be off in some ways. If we look at 2023, Fran, who wins Olympia at this point, right? She did contest in the upper body a bit, but that was okay because so did Issa, right? Like they have a little bit more of the size that year. That was kind of the way it went with the upper body. Wellness still taking shape, still figuring all that out. She had that great waist taper, everything here, really nailed conditioning, and her lower body took the show. I mean, we look at the glutes, we can clearly see that good size there. Upper glutes developed, everything's there, and really nice symmetry between the hamstrings and the quads. So everything really tied together well for Fran, but really where she won was the back pose, which we'll look at in a second. However, when we look over here at 2024 Olympia now, where she takes second, loses the title, the undefeatable Francielli, it doesn't give me the same kind of effect. It's not as dramatic of a look. It looks to be a little bit out of sorts, and here's why, right? We can see shoulders kind of did come down a bit. I think she was a little bit too ahead in the shoulders, though, either way this year, especially compared to Issa. So even though she may have downsized that a bit, it wasn't enough to appear asymmetrical enough. And really, her posing just appears to be so off to me. This whole Olympia her posing was just not nailed. This pose in 2023 is a far better look for her than this one, right? We kind of lose her shoulder. Again, the hair is an issue. Even though her hair's in the same spot, 2023, we can still see the shoulder. And this is what judges are looking for. They're not looking at your hair. They're judging muscle. They're judging shape. They're judging size there, right? Like hair comes into it, but if you don't got those other variables, I mean, the game is over. So realistically, really interesting to see that as, a different look, and posing could have just totally taken Fran off at this point this year, which I do believe it was one of the quarter turns that really was the point difference. However, when we look to the lower body now, this is where things look, to be a little bit too much to me. Her glute looks dramatically bigger than her hamstrings and her quads and pretty much every other muscle, like even compared to the upper body. The glute of 2024, I don't know what's going on here. It's too dramatic. It's too much of an effect. It looks too dominant in this look compared to the other muscles, where Issa had it all tied together really, really nicely, right? Really, really balanced look between the glutes, the quads, and hamstrings. Fran has a very dominant glute look that does not necessarily match her quads and her hamstrings. So I just don't think it's there as much. And, conditioning wise, I wouldn't say it really is on point either. She looks a little bit like she went a little harder in the lower body, and the upper body looks a little softer. So it just seems off. It's an off version of Fran compared to what we had seen in a long time. Still very great representation of wellness. Don't get me wrong. Just want to break this down for all of you to get a better idea of how placings land the way they did, right? And so now we go to the back pose, and this is where we get to see the whole story. So Fran 2023 over here, and Fran 2024. Now, this is, again, where it's a very different look. I mean, some similarities, but a lot of differences. And I mean, I do think Fran's look from a couple years back even was much better than either one of these. She really kind of had it, and I think she's been just changing things as she goes, right? When you're at the top, you constantly got to try to figure out how to get better, and sometimes you push the wrong direction. I think Fran definitely looks weaker in the back pose of this year than she did in prior year, right? Because even though the glute in the front shot didn't look as dramatic in 2023, from the back, we have a lot more depth from the glute. We have a lot more of that 3D effect. We have a lot more of the upper glute roundness showing through. We got this tie-in just popping, right? And we do have a good symmetrical look between the quads and the hamstrings and the glutes in the back pose. Still, though, some of that asymmetry look where the glutes were pushed so far again that, like, same with Issa of that year, it's too much. It's just a little bit out of balance. We look to this year, 2024, her glutes kind of look a little bit, downsized and deflated almost, right? Like they don't have that same 3D effect, that same pop, that same fullness that they did. So that, I think, is an issue because it makes her quads look really, really overpowering from the back pose. So we have, this look where in the front pose, it's like her glute is just taken over. And then in the back pose, she almost looks like her glutes are falling behind. So it's a very interesting look. Not the best version of Fran we've seen. I wouldn't say that at all. And, it makes sense that she kind of did not retain title at this point for maybe several reasons, some of which I think is definitely posing, some of which I think is definitely altering of the physique. But she lost this 3D effect, that pop effect of the glutes at this point, at this Olympia. And I think that's a big factor because Issa did not. Issa did not have that issue. Issa had that pop. She had everything there in very good symmetry. Fran looks a little bit flat, a little bit off. There's nobody that can look at the glutes here and say that that doesn't look a bit depleted compared to her 2023 look. So very different look for Fran. Honestly, I mean, looking at it side by side, it's surprising to me she didn't fall lower maybe than top two. However, you know, it's been basically Issa and Fran show for a while at Olympia. Probably will continue to be like that. You know, hopefully we'll have some more up-and-comers come and try to take that title. However, you know, it is interesting to see that, you know, as wellness continues to develop, things just continue to change as far as this kind of shape goes, this look goes, and everything. But what judges are really echoing back to us, right, is this, okay? We look at Issa. This is Issa. This is the goal. This is where you're at. We want to go back to criteria. We want to go back to the standard. We want to make sure that athletes are pushing it too far, pull it back, and we want to show you that wellness is the lower body dominant version of bikini, right? That's really what it started to be. That's where it's supposed to be. Same conditioning, same, you know, overall symmetry in the upper body. Really what makes it different is that lower body dominance and that glute ham thigh separation and everything else to a bigger degree because of the muscle, and that's really it. But it should never stray further than that. Shouldn't become a huge, you know, show of muscle in the lower body and the upper body with striations, cuts, veins, deep, you know, things that some athletes are trying to bring. It's not a mass monster show. It's wellness. It's literally called wellness and was rooted, you know, in the idea of wellness being like a look for an athlete, you know, an athlete outside of bodybuilding even, right? Like an athletic look. A lot of people that do very good in the wellness division are former athletes, college athletes, things like that, that, you know, they lifted and they trained and they sprinted and they did other things that made their lower body bigger. And then they can come here in the bodybuilding world and put that on stage. And, you know, we're looking at the top level Olympians. We're looking at the top two of the entire division in this video. But you better believe that in the regional levels, the amateurs, the NPC, and, you know, into even pro qualifiers, we're seeing a high variance of a lot of those types of people. A lot of those former athletes and, you know, that kind of look. And that's what wins competitions. So really take home message for all of you. Your wellness look is not an extreme one. It is not one that is pushing the boundary. This is not one that is over muscled and over chiseled. It is one that is fit within the criteria. Your best wellness physique will be the one that is fitting for you in the best way, right? And I think that's really where Issa came into. She improved the most, no doubt, out of any athlete from Olympia to Olympia. And again, that's how she gets the title. And, you know, seeing this and seeing where Fran's physique has kind of gone over the past bit, it's surprising to me in some ways that she's continued to kind of stray a little bit further and further, in my opinion, on that criteria. And we'll have to see how that really goes for her. But overall, you know, really great opportunity for her, really great chance for Issa to take the title and continue to run with it. So very exciting, guys. I want to hear in the comments what you think. What do you think about the direction of wellness and the direction of where things are going and how all of that is going to come to play? If you want more videos like this, let me know. Drop them in the comments. Thank you for watching. Coach Rye is out.